Good afternoon, everyone. They're back. Iceberg flotillas, 4 times the average already this early in the season. Looks to be higher than last year. 4th extreme iceberg season in a row. Increased mobility of high Arctic ice sea, increasing marine hazards off the east coast of Newfoundland. They're talking about sea ice flux through the Nares Strait here in the blue box. Zoom in where you can see the ice arches. The conclusion, ice is going to last until June. This is extremely anomalous, and it's caused by the newly changing lows coming up into the Arctic. Today's temperatures in that same area, minus 22 degrees Celsius. And a look at the North Pole, minus 31 degrees Celsius. It's not warming anytime soon, so these icebergs are definitely not from melting glaciers. And while you're watching the video, please remember to subscribe to Adapt 2030 and click that bell so you can get the latest updates. And another sign of the intensifying grand solar minimum will be repeats in cycles. So when all these icebergs came down that sunk the Titanic, that's on a 100-year cycle that we're currently in. Now multiply that again 3 times out and then we get into longer cycles. Extreme iceberg season threatens oil rigs and shipping. Now it's interesting how the article claims that the Arctic warms. Although it's minus 30 degrees Celsius up there now, nothing's melting. Nothing. We're talking about icebergs calving off of Greenland ice sheet. And remember last year, 2017, these massive icebergs that rolled up under the shores of Newfoundland and Labrador. And the year before that, icebergs all the way down to Cape Cod, Massachusetts in the United States. So bringing you over here to the North American Ice Service. This is today, April 3rd, 2018. This is how many icebergs are out there already. Now you have to consider the average amount is 34 for this time of the year. Currently they're sitting at 121. So each square, it'll indicate how many bergs are out there. And if you count all those up, some of the numbers are overlaid and obscured. So I'm going to say between 116 and 121 because some look like 5s and maybe an 8. So it's off by a couple there. But minimum 3 to 4 times the average amount for this time of the year. So it's starting off heavy. And I love how they say the ice is acting very strangely all over the Arctic. I'll absolutely agree. It's not from CO2, it's not from you, it's from the sun. You would expect strangeness to happen during a grand solar minimum. Now just look at the periphery of the Arctic Circle. They had to put a whole new another meter band inside there to measure how thick the ice is. It's getting up near 6 meters thick. So the overall ice concentration no longer really matters. I mean, it's the thickness along the coastal areas and going out to 15% in to the Arctic Circle. 6 meter ice, that's 18 feet thick. That is going to take a long time to melt. And they're already calling for this season to be higher than last year. And last year was 3 times higher than the previous year, which was considered high. It had so much of an effect on Atlantic shipping traffic that those vessels had to travel in transit 400 miles further south due to the iceberg threat last year. This is a great image here of the ship transit routes globally. I'll ask you to look no further than what is put out by these heavy fuel-burning vessels transiting our oceans. Now that aside, oil and gas industry on the Grand Banks was inundated with icebergs so much that they had to actually cease operations, try to use water cannon. They were trying to tow icebergs out of the way. And this year it's going to be worse. Remember all the ice that cut off the fishing fleets last year, cut off the ferry services, the fishermen. It's going to happen again this year. Now, this site, Inside Climate News, did have some really good connections and links out to U.S. Coast Guard and International Ice Patrol, and also the North American Ice Service. Good backlinks inside that story. Let's take a look here at the Arctic Circle at the moment, minus 31 degrees Celsius. This is on April 3rd, 2018. Now the article here, increasing mobility of high Arctic sea ice increases marine hazards. Now this will be off the east coast of Newfoundland and Labrador, going all the way down to Massachusetts. Now last year, hazardous ice persisted late into June. So what do you think is going to happen this year? There's more ice, colder temperatures lasting much longer than last year. This is the area on the map that they're referencing in the study. Now that strait between Greenland and what you see the rest of Canada there is called the Nares Strait. Now what they're finding is this ice is becoming jammed up. There's just so much ice out there and the water currents are changing, the air currents are changing. This has nothing to do with global warming. It is all to do with the grand solar minimum. And where are we back to again? Baffin Island. You know, Baffin Island was pegged as the seed point of the last major glaciation on this planet. And here we have the ice bunching up again. And now we're back at the point where ice flux increases due to these ice arcs in the exact same area. Coincidental or a cycle repeating? Here's the area on the map. We're looking at around 79 degrees north latitude. So everything from this point forward, we're going to use the 79 north. Look at the ice arch there. It'll be to the bottom in the left where it says open water. That's the open water. And then all that ice is backed up there. A Roman arch, as you would see in, say, aqueduct. You know, it's incredibly resilient, that shape, at holding load behind it. But look at this thing's 200, 300 miles wide. So imagine what a Roman arch can hold up at just a few meters wide. Now multiply that out by hundreds of miles and see how much tension that could put in prevention of flows. Now when that builds up, this ice gets thick. Right back down here at 79 north again, you can see zoomed in on the open water versus where the ice arc is now creating these same conditions as last year. So the whole report about was them going out and mapping as the ice arc jam behind coming out of the Arctic started to bunch up and form these larger icebergs. And those in turn, when they released, they followed them down, the yellow dots. So the dates at the top there, what's interesting though is this year it's months later than it was last year. So I'm really curious on how long these iceberg flotillas are going to stay. And I am still predicting ice further south than Cape Cod, Massachusetts this year. The report further goes into how these lows coming into the Arctic that are not normal are breaking up ice and causing it to do different things, pushing it in different areas, damming it, releasing it in other areas that clear earlier. It's just not the same old Arctic that we're used to. And they're even finding that the composition of what was known by the IPCC as the sea ice is different in these reports right here. I've linked everything below. I want you to read the entire report. Because according to the IPCC, the multi-year thick and medium ice just shouldn't be there. But look how much of a compositional makeup that is of the entirety. So again, I put that dot right there at 79 north. Look at the temperatures, minus 22 degrees Celsius. Now you're being told right now that things are melting. And look over Greenland, that dark red is even colder. That's minus 40 Fahrenheit. This ice is not coming from calving glaciers off of Greenland. As you can see, these temperatures, when they go below zero, into the negative 20, negative 30, negative 40, it matches the Fahrenheit temperatures when it gets that cold. So it's minus 40 Fahrenheit. Nothing's melting. There's no glaciers pushing off there that are calving to create these icebergs. It is a different mechanism. And this cold is going to persist for weeks and weeks longer, all the way into May. And you're going to have to ask the IPCC why we're still getting below freezing temperatures in the Arctic Circle in May, when it should be warming. Just naturally you would expect it. I mean, that's the natural cycle of the Earth, is to warm in May, June, and July up there. But look how cold it is. And that cold's extending all the way over North America still. This matches right up with the last grand solar minimum called the Maunder minimum. You can see the repeats in history, the same locations, the same glaciation points, the same seed points. Everything is matching again. These icebergs have become a new feature off of our coastlines. From this point forward, you can almost be assured of iceberg tourism every single year. Thanks for watching. Hope you got something out of the video. So when temperatures are still in the 15 to 20 degree Fahrenheit range or minus 10 degrees Celsius range coming up in May, maybe people ask a question or two.